He was a billionaire who could buy anything except peace, and she was a single mother with nothing left except one desperate plea. When their worlds collided on an ordinary afternoon, a single decision set off a chain of events no one saw coming. Stay with this story till the end, because what happens next will completely change how you see kindness, power, and fate. And before we begin, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that one moment can change an entire life. The city moved fast, as it always did. Cars rushed past towering glass buildings, people hurried along sidewalks with their eyes glued to their phones, and no one noticed the woman standing near the hospital entrance, clutching a worn-out bag to her chest. Her name was Sarah Miller, and at 28 years old, life had already taken more from her than most people could imagine. She was a single mother to a 6-year-old girl named Lily, a child with bright eyes and a laugh that once filled their tiny apartment with warmth. That laughter had faded over the past few months, replaced by hospital beeps, whispered prayers, and sleepless nights. Sarah's husband had died in a construction accident 3 years earlier, leaving her alone with a newborn and a mountain of bills. She worked 2 jobs, cleaned houses during the day, and served tables at night. Every dollar went toward rent, food, and Lily's medical care. When Lily fell sick, the doctors initially thought it was a minor infection. But tests led to more tests, and soon Sarah was sitting in a cold hospital room hearing words she never thought she would hear. Rare, aggressive, expensive. The treatment could save Lily's life, but it cost more than Sarah could earn in a lifetime. She sold everything she could: her wedding ring, her old phone, even her late husband's jacket. Friends helped where they could, but it was never enough. Charity applications were denied or delayed. Time was slipping away, and Lily's condition worsened with every passing day. That morning, Sarah had been told that without an immediate payment, the next phase of treatment could not begin. She walked outside the hospital feeling numb, her legs shaking, her heart pounding with fear. At the same time, on the opposite side of the street, a black luxury car came to a smooth stop. Stepping out was Daniel Harrington, a self-made billionaire known across the country. He had built an empire from nothing, turning a small tech startup into a global giant. To the public, he was powerful, confident, untouchable. To the business world, he was ruthless but fair. But behind the tailored suits and headlines, Daniel carried a quiet emptiness. Years ago, his wife and young daughter had died in a tragic car accident. Since then, his life had become a routine of meetings, money, and silence. Daniel was at the hospital for a board member's visit, a formality he almost skipped. As he adjusted his cufflinks and prepared to walk inside, he heard a voice crack through the noise of the city. It wasn't loud, but it was raw, filled with pain that cut through everything else. "Please, please save my daughter." Daniel stopped. At first, he thought he imagined it. People begged all the time, especially when they recognized him. He had learned to keep walking. But something about that voice made him turn around. He saw Sarah standing there, tears streaming down her face, her body trembling as she spoke to anyone who would listen. People walked past her without slowing down. Some avoided eye contact, others shook their heads. Sarah saw Daniel looking at her, but she didn't know who he was. She only saw a man who looked calm, steady, like someone who might have answers. She rushed toward him before fear could stop her. Her words tumbled out in broken sentences. She told him about Lily, about the diagnosis, about the money she didn't have. She wasn't asking for charity, she said. She would work, repay every cent, do anything. She just needed her daughter to live. Daniel listened in silence. His security team shifted uncomfortably, ready to intervene. This was not part of the schedule. He could feel the familiar instinct to shut down, to walk away. He had heard tragic stories before. But as Sarah spoke, his mind drifted to a different hospital room years ago, to his own child lying still under white sheets. A pain he thought he had buried rose sharply in his chest. He asked one simple question: how much? Sarah hesitated, embarrassed by the number. When she finally said it, she braced herself for rejection. It was more money than most people saw in decades. Daniel didn't react immediately. He looked past her, at the hospital doors, then back at her eyes. He told her to wait and walked inside without another word. Sarah felt her knees weaken. She thought it was over. She had begged one last stranger and failed. She sank onto a bench, holding her bag, whispering apologies to her daughter in her mind. Inside, Daniel didn't go to the board meeting. Instead, he requested Lily's medical file. The doctors were surprised but complied. Daniel read every page carefully. He asked questions. He pushed for second opinions. Hours passed. The board members waited. His phone buzzed constantly, but he ignored it. Then he did something no one expected. He didn't just agree to pay for Lily's treatment. He ordered the hospital to bring in a specialist from overseas, one of the best in the world. He covered every expense anonymously and arranged for experimental therapy that wasn't even offered at that hospital yet. When Daniel finally walked back outside, Sarah was still there, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. He told her the treatment would begin immediately. He said the hospital bills were handled. He said her daughter would get the best care possible. Sarah stared at him, confused, not fully understanding. When it finally sank in, she collapsed in front of him, sobbing, trying to thank him, trying to touch his shoes in gratitude. Daniel gently stopped her and told her to stand. He said he wasn't doing this as a favor. He said he was doing it because no parent should have to beg to save their child. News of the anonymous donor spread quietly through the hospital, but Daniel's name stayed out of it. Lily's treatment began that same night. Days turned into weeks. Sarah barely slept, staying by her daughter's bedside, watching color slowly return to Lily's face. For the first time in months, Lily smiled. But the story didn't end there. One evening, Sarah was called into a private office. She feared something had gone wrong. Instead, she found Daniel waiting for her. He asked her about her life, her work, her dreams before everything fell apart. Sarah spoke honestly. She admitted she once wanted to study nursing but dropped out to support her family. Daniel listened carefully. Then he offered her something unexpected. He offered her a full scholarship to complete her education, a stable job once she graduated, and childcare support during her studies. He said he didn't want to save Lily's life only to send her back into struggle. Sarah was overwhelmed. She asked why he was doing all this for a stranger. Daniel paused for a long moment. Then he told her about his wife, about his daughter, about the day he stood helpless in a hospital hallway with more money than he could ever spend and nothing that could save them. He said helping Sarah and Lily didn't erase his loss, but it gave his pain a purpose. Just when life seemed to finally settle, another twist arrived. A journalist uncovered parts of the story and tried to expose Daniel's involvement. Headlines began to circulate. Critics accused him of staging generosity for publicity. Old rivals questioned his motives. The pressure mounted. Daniel faced a choice. He could deny everything or step forward. He chose the latter. At a press conference, he didn't talk about money or business. He talked about regret, about listening, about how easy it is to walk past suffering when you're busy. His honesty silenced many critics and inspired thousands. Donations flooded into children's hospitals nationwide. Other billionaires followed his lead. A foundation was created in Lily's name to support families facing similar battles. Sarah watched in disbelief as her private nightmare turned into a movement that saved countless lives. Months later, Lily rang the hospital bell, signaling the end of her treatment. Her laughter filled the halls once more. Sarah stood beside her, tears of joy streaming down her face. Daniel watched from a distance, not wanting to intrude. Lily saw him and ran toward him, hugging his legs with all the strength she had. She looked up at him and said, "Thank you for saving me." In that moment, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not power, not pride, peace. Life didn't become perfect. There were still challenges, scars, and memories that hurt. But fate had been rewritten, not by money alone, but by a moment of humanity between two strangers. And it all began with a desperate plea that one man chose not to ignore. As you reflect on this story, remember that you never know whose life you might change by simply stopping and listening. And now tell us in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching this video?